Hi, I'm KS Garner, and you're listening to the Solo Nerdbird podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with the co-writers of Headcases, Leslie Julien and AJ O'Mason, here to promote the comic currently on Crowdfunder. Welcome, Leslie. Welcome, AJ.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining me today. But outside my introduction, who is Leslie Julien and AJ O'Mason in their own words?
I am a Haitian American comic writer who has been doing this for the last 7 years. I kind of just write whatever pops into my brain, and this time it happened to be a story about two kids that steal a briefcase, or not briefcase, but a bag with a severed head in it.
My name is AJ O'Mason. I'm a writer and letterer. I've worked on comics for 4 years now. I have released some stuff through Kickstarter, some self-published stuff, some stuff that were in anthologies. And right now I'm working on Headcases with Leslie, and also working on a graphic novel trilogy with IDW that's called Cloud9.
Cool. So Leslie, you kind of already answered this question, but I guess what is Headcases about, really?
Yeah, so Headcases is a story about these two teens, Gila and Ramon, who were, just normal kids on a subway, just headed to school in the morning. And Gila is just bored out of her mind and decides really impulsively, what if we just happen to steal something from this random guy in front of us? And unfortunately from her, the bag that she steals is, again, there's a decapitated head in there, and they stole it from a hitman, and things, progress wildly from there. It really is like a runaway train after those first 6 pages of the story.
They steal it from a hitman. You think it would be more secure than just...
You would think.
You would think that.
Right.
But could either of you elaborate on your creative process for Headcases as a whole? So I guess, Leslie, just a thought in your head about this to working it out as a complete work, and then finding collaborators to work with, like AJ, to now promoting it on Crowdfunder.
Yeah, so it was really interesting. AJ hit me up just kind of randomly. I think he maybe saw some of my short stories online and asked if we wanted to collaborate. And I said, yeah, let's give it a shot. I had only co-written one other story. So I was kind of nervous, honestly, to go into it. But me and AJ, we kind of found a system that worked for us. Basically, creating a story, what we did was I wrote this first issue, and AJ kind of served as the editor. After I wrote the script, he went back and edited things, made sure that the tone of voice or maybe like the beats that we're trying to hit were met. And so that's kind of what AJ did. And after that, we, did a couple more rounds of revisions, and then we showed around to our peer group, and they said, whoa, you guys wrote something crazy here. And that was kind of our green light to go ahead and put together our creative team from there. We were lucky enough to stumble into Paolo Sempial, the line artist who does incredible work. And from there, we were both fans of Warnia K. Sahadewa, her colors from Dryfoot. And I'd always wanted to work with Micah Myers, the letterer. So we put together a strong team with this one.
Yeah, and how about you, AJ? How was your experience working alongside Leslie as you both, I guess, fleshed out this almost like random idea he had in his head to now complete work on Crowdfunder?
So it's basically the same experience. I was also, before I reached out to him, it was always a challenge that I wanted to face, or not just the challenge. It's also like such a journey to co-write something with someone. Usually I'm just used to just write something. You write the script, you give it to some friends, and then they tell you what they think, and then you give it to the artist, and and from there it goes. But here it felt almost like really, I don't know, like intimate, like sharing like those characters and everything with the co-writer. And I think we did a really great job. And yeah, it was an amazing experience. And just it's always crazy to me when I think about okay, so we started thinking about the idea. That idea, we kind of decided to go with it around maybe the middle of 2020. And it was just an idea, and then it became an outline, and after that it became a script, and after that it became 6 pages of preview pages, and I hope that my hope is that actually it's actually going to become a mini series, and that's going to be my first mini series. I think Leslie's Savage Wizard, the comic that you're doing with Doug, is that also a mini series?
Yeah, so another mini series, two mini series, ideally will come out of. And that's, both these comics kind of happen around the same time. Headcases and Savage Wizard. I had another crowdfunding comic that I put out last year. It's still in production right now, but I co-wrote that one with Doug Wood, and then a couple months later, AJ approached me at co-writing. So it's kind of funny. It's co-writing magic in the air at the time.
Yeah, so it was really. So I hope that if this gets funded, we're actually going to start my first mini series. And it's always crazy to me to think about it.
Yeah. So, what is the difference actually between crowdfunder and Kickstarter? I'm so used to doing Kickstarter interviews. I'm like, is there a really difference? Because I see that it has the layout and then like the rewards on the sides, and of course, people donate money or they purchase whatever rewards they want to back the project. So, is there a real difference or anything like that? That either of you know of?
For the most part, I would say they're basically the same because they're both crowdfunding platforms, but there are some differences. With Crowdfunder, one of the cool features is that you can back things at multiple tiers. Like, in Kickstarter, you can only pick one reward and you're locked in with that. But with Crowdfunder, you can basically grab as many rewards as you want. You're not limited to just one. Another difference with Crowdfunder is that so creators, when they put projects on there, any crowdfunding platform, you pay the credit card fees, but also platform fees. So Crowdfunder, they have it where there's 3 different tiers for creators. There's one tier where you don't pay any platform fee at all. They have a second tier where your backers where basically defer those costs where you pay them when they're paying for rewards. And the third one is the same as Kickstarter. So you would just pay that platform fee. And there's one more difference, AJ. I'm not sure if you remember it. There's one more big difference. Oh, yeah. The other one is so basically you can do the Kickstarter all or nothing method when you're raising your money, or you can do like the Indiegogo, take whatever like you raise, pretty much is another one of the main differences. And there's other little things like I say it's really modular because of like all those differences kind of give you some different options, but also I think they were really focused on like the design aesthetic. So I think the pages seem a little bit shorter sometimes in the Kickstarter ones. Like they have little tabs so you can separate like stuff. Like for ours, we put the team information on a different page. So there's just little differences like that make them different. But in all, reality, they're pretty much the same. But just again, some slight differences here and there.
Okay, yeah, I figure I'd slip that question in because some people might be looking towards other options other than Kickstarter, or they don't really know the difference themselves.
Yeah, they're brand. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, yeah. So they're brand new. We launched the same day as them. They came out on June 21st, and our campaign also launched June 21st. So they're brand new. We're on there. There's some other cool campaigns on there. Mark Stack has a beautiful looking comic on there called Madness. Ryan K. Lindsay is on there with backstory. So they're definitely want to get themselves out there as a platform for creators. I think originally they started, the parent company was Fundraiser, which is more like a GoFundMe type thing. Mm-hmm. And they had a comic person just randomly run a campaign on there. It was actually successful. And it said, well, maybe we could kind of do a better service for creators if we like launch something that was more creator focused than what they had before. So from Fundraiser, they kind of split off and started Crowdfunder now, which is, a lot more creator centric. So here we are.
Yeah, that's good info for anyone, listening and wants to explore other options. In Kickstarter or Crowdfunder is a good option to explore. I'm not sure what either of your influences were as you were co-writing Headcases, but was it difficult for the world building for Headcases? Like, how did you two manage to create a world that is totally your own and integrate your influences into it, but maintain that Headcases is in your world and not someone else's?
That's a great question. We actually, like when we initially came up with the idea, in my head it was very much I wanted it to be like a love letter to Martin McDonagh's films like In Bruges, Seven Psychopaths, all that kind of stuff, but also Pulp Fiction, where it's like it's just very crazy. There are multiple things happening at once. So it was in the outline phase, it was really a struggle. I remember me and Leslie trying to wrap our heads around everything. We wanted everything to like be in like different, I don't know how to explain it. It's just like different storylines, but also not that much. Like we wanted to jump back and forth between characters, and we wanted it to be in the end where it's gonna be in the final issue. There's gonna be like a huge battle, of course. So like we wanted all those characters at the same time to also have a place where they have their own character arc and they have things to do in the outline. And like we really, it was a challenge, but in the end I think we figured it out. And I can't wait for people to, if we get it funded, I can't wait for people to see how it progresses and how crazy and wild it goes along the way.
Yeah, I think one of the main things that part of my thinking in our influence was I think like honestly the process kind of reflects what we wrote, was that it was a lot of fun. Like it's dark subject matter, but I think we had fun writing it, and we were trying to convey like a fun, crazy, like off the wall story here. There are definitely certain things that we kind of I think had as influence in the back of our mind. I know AJ brought up Bog Bodies. I hadn't read that book, but Four Kids Walking the Bank was definitely a part of the DNA for both of us in writing it, because we have these, smart addict kids just get into some stuff that's way over their head. And we I think we're thinking in terms of the setting. So it's set in New York in like the late 90s. So there's some kind of mechanics that we use to get around to some of the questions that you might, to consider thinking of, like, there's no cell phone. So that kind of helps us get around some certain things. And that's definitely a part of our thinking when we thought up the story. And that I think definitely worked to kind of build the world and the sex that we were going for.
Mm-hmm. So has there ever been a clash between your creative side, like thinking of these random ideas for stories, versus the writer side of you of wanting to complete them and flesh them out, but it's like, how am I supposed to do that? Or like, oh, you come up with the idea of these two kids on their way to school, and one of them is bored out of their mind. They wants to steal a bag. Come find out it's a head in it. Okay, that's cool. So what about the rest of it? So you have this idea as a creator, and then you, like, as the writer, you're like, how am I gonna complete this as a work?
Yeah, that's always tough. Like people say like ideas are a dime a dozen. You can come up with a lot of ideas, but like execution is a tough part. And I think that's the fun part of collaborating with someone, like, especially if they're as invested or maybe more invested in you, is that they're gonna, help you push this along. You have that back and forth where, oh, I had this idea, but this didn't work. And then like someone can twist that idea and like, turn just that little idea you had into, an outline, and you just kind of go with it. And we were kind of passing the ball back and forth in terms of ideas, like where if maybe one of us is stuck in one process, next thing you know, it's like, hey, AJ, I have an idea, or hey, Leslie, like, what do you think of this? And it's like, oh my gosh, like you can think of that, but someone else can get outside your brain and kind of develop things a little bit more, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, AJ? Has there ever been like that? Like, how do you, I guess, manage your creative side of thinking of ideas and then the writer side of actually executing those ideas?
It's a great question. Again, like it really is just a challenge. Like writing is like, especially writing, I believe, like writing with a lot of characters that you want all of them to go through character arcs and stuff like that. That can be so hard, because you want to make sure that every character has enough space, and also you want to make sure that the main characters, which we also have two main characters, you also want to make sure that each of them go on their own character arc. And it's actually something that I'm also like sometimes struggling with outlining the trilogy of graphic novels that I'm doing for IDW, because that's also like has a lot of characters involved. So it is a real challenge. And the way to do it, the way I do it is just banging my head against the wall until like something comes out. I'm like, nothing works. And then I'm like, wait, what if? And then once that one if like goes out of my head and I start, like, everything starts connecting, from there it's just a cakewalk,
Just to add to that, question a little bit more because that was a really great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I have like a Google Keep folder of like so many ideas, and like I'm sure like 90% of them will never get touched. But it's like sometimes you just kind of the push like the ones that just really stay stuck in your brain. Like this was one of them. Savage was one of them. I wrote or at least the first parts of like a graphic novel that was like just stuck in my brain, and I put that together and found an editor and approached some literary agents about it just because it was kind of stuck in my brain so much. But like sometimes like you just have something that's like literally driving you mad and like you have to get it out. So I think for me it's just like not just leaving it there, like just forcing yourself to mobilize and make something happen with it. And again, co-writing or collaborating with other people is a great way to keep you accountable and then move things along.
Yeah, I actually have like a bunch of Google Docs of stories that I wrote, from like years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I also write a lot in my notes app on my iPhone for stuff that just comes to mind.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the times I really don't know where I'm gonna go with it. And maybe I'll use something that didn't work in one story, I'll put it in another.
Right.
And then it's so weird how like the brain works, because sometimes I feel like for some reason my brain knew how this was gonna work, but like I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then I figured it out. I was like, I had to catch up with my brain. I was like, oh, so you knew this whole time, but you didn't tell me? Okay.
Yeah. No, the writer, that makes total sense. Like sometimes it's just like almost like at a higher level, like you can't consciously think about, but somehow like when you're in front of the computer, just things start to come and you can't quite like logically like put together, but like it just comes. And yeah, that's just such an interesting way that humans operate. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, and for me, actually, most of the times when I like figure something out, it's right before I go to sleep. Like I'm almost falling asleep, and then I'm like, wait, I got it. And then I'm like, oh man, oh my God, okay. And then I go to my notes app and I'm starting to write. Or it's just like I go on a walk or I just do my normal day-to-day stuff, and then something comes up and I have to basically stop everything and write it down. So yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I do the same thing. Sometimes I walk my dog, or when I'm taking a shower, or when I was I wrote my first book. I was writing it when I was driving home from work and just imagining scenes in different places, and that's how I was able to flesh a lot of stuff out. And sometimes I'm just writing just to be writing, just to see where the scene goes. And then again, my brain is like, I'm starting to connect all the dots, where it's like my brain already knew that was going to happen, which I think is super weird again.
Yeah.
But what advice would either of you offer to other creators you wish someone would have told you when you first started?
One might sound cliche, but I think that it's really important, especially when you're first starting out, is to start small. I think is one of the best pieces of advice that I can give, because it's actually a lot harder, I think, than people realize to write like a small story, like a 1-page or 2-page comic, and like have that be like a fully fleshed out beginning, middle, end story than like trying to do like a full 24-page or like a whole graphic novel. Like, like if you can really like sharpen your craft and hone your skills on making that short stories, like it's going to make your longer stuff like so much more, I think, powerful. So I think that's definitely one of the go-to pieces of advice that I give new writers.
I would say usually I say that too whenever I get asked that, but I just now something that came up to mind. Well, I was also talking about how like we started in middle of 2020 writing Headcases, and now we just started doing the funding for it. So something that I wish someone told me is that sometimes making comics can be so slow, and you have to be like super patient, because it just has to be that way. Like you're working with people, and art, especially when it comes to the art stage, it just takes a lot of time and a lot of energy out of the artist. So you also don't want to overwhelm them while you're working with them. And sometimes, like most of the things that I have out now, or that I'm gonna have out in like the next 2 years, I've been working on them for like to 1 to 3 years even. And it's sometimes me having ADHD, I don't know if that's maybe the why it is, but like I just want that instant gratification. Like I always want like to see what people think of my work and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes I just have to be patient and remind myself, like, yeah, I have a lot of things going on, but at the same time, it just slowly progresses and it just takes time. And if you want to do this like full time, or you just want to have like a real career in comics, it's just always have something in the back of your mind, always something that you're working on, which can be, again, a lot, and you have to be patient. But you just, like, for me, like I don't even, like, sometimes I can't even help it. Sometimes I just want to keep working. Like I finish up a project and I'm like, okay, what's next? Because like I love telling stories and I love writing. So if you want to do this, like I always, like you said, write down ideas on your notes app, and always have something brewing in the back of your mind, in the subconscious, where once you're done with another project, you can be like, okay, now it's time to tackle this, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Well, just to, I guess, to piggyback off of what you said, AJ, I guess about being frustrated or impatient throughout this whole process, did either of you ever get overwhelmed? Did it ever become too much? And how do you typically manage your mental well-being when it does become too much, even with like trying to balance not just the work itself, but things outside of the work? So say like family, friends, household things, or maybe even trying to maintain a social life. So how do you manage your mental well-being when it does become too much?
I think we definitely did have that happen. Earlier in the production, we found some other artists, but unfortunately things just kind of fell through. The first one had like an injury and had to back out. The second one had just some publisher obligations, and so they had to back out. So yeah, I actually took 3 or 2 artists before we managed to find Paulo. So I mean, one thing is definitely managing your expectations. Yeah, like AJ mentioned before, like making comics can take a while, and sometimes even when you're making them, you kind of forget that. But like, there's just a process of finding people and an actual creation that can just take a while and can kind of be kind of draining. So I think definitely taking a step back and just enjoying yourself and not feeling guilty when you're doing those things is very important for every creator and yourself to understand. Sometimes we forget that and we have to be kind to ourselves. But I think remembering to do those things that you love, do the things that you love, and just kind of get away from comics, whether that's, going outside, which I know can be hard for a lot of us because we're on social media or on our computers a lot, or like, just watching your favorite movies, or whatever that thing that is that kind of refills your energy levels is what you have to do for sure. I think is definitely important when you're feeling that frustration rising, and it's definitely a key to mental health.
Yeah, and I would say also another point where I don't know if like we were really overwhelmed. We were just a little bit, I don't know even if disappointed is the right word, but like we were just a little unhappy, I guess, where when we first like finished up the preview pages, we first pitched it to some publishers. And unfortunately, no one was interested in the pitch, and we like, I kind of like, everything just worked out. Like I thought the outline was great, and I thought Paulo Sampaio's art with Sade was colors and Micah's letters, like it looked like a professional book. Like it looked like something that I would see in the comic book store and I would pick up immediately. And I was a little, I'll admit it, I was a little disappointed that we didn't get picked up. And then we decided to just go for it. Like, what are we gonna do? Just now, like, let it go and not make it like into a mini series that we wanna have out there. So there was a point there where I was just a little disappointed, but we just picked ourselves up and we said, all right, let's just do it. And now hopefully it's gonna become our the mini series that we want it to be.
Yeah, I think it'll work. It's a really cool idea, and I didn't even know it was set in the '90s. That's kind of interesting to me too. So set in the '90s, and they steal a bag with a head in it. And then I don't want to spoil it because I know you sent me some details about it earlier, Leslie. So yeah, I think it'll be pretty interesting. It's I don't know. I guess it's an original idea or it's something a little bit more refreshing in a way, kind of sort of, I should say. But yeah, I think it'll work. It'll definitely work. But
Me too.
my last question for the both of you, Leslie and AJ, is what is your idea of success? So I ask that because as creators, if we're not getting full regular paychecks from a full-time job or making consistent revenue from our art, we're considered failures or we consider ourselves failures. Many of us will put our dreams and projects on the back burner or give them up altogether because this career path can be highly intimidating and competitive. So what is your idea of quote unquote success?
So I don't think there's one definite idea of success. I think there's levels to that. So for me, I mean, starting out where I am, I think for me, success is one of them. Pictures of success is getting my books into a comic shop, and so I'm hoping after things are said and done, and either we get this issue printed, or maybe even down the line when the miniseries is done, that okay, it'll be awesome to have Headcases in a comic shop. And I've actually had that with a previous work, a smaller work. There was a really cool shop in Buffalo, Pulp 716, that's been great to indie creators. And that was amazing to see my work in a shop like miles away from me. So it'd be cool to see that again, hopefully closer to home this time around. Another idea of success, I think, for me is, I mean, getting recognized by peers. So maybe seeing work or nominated for, whatever award that might be, whether it's the gosh, what's at the Ringos right now? Like that would be an amazing accomplishment for me. So those are some pictures of success for me. Seeing my work in comic shops and maybe just getting recognized by the industry, I think, to me are signs of success. Along with one day ideally getting published as well, I think is another ladder to success. But yeah, there's so many ways that you can see yourself as successful for sure.
I would say my idea of success is of course, like Leslie said, having a comic in the comic book stores. That happened several times with like anthologies that I was in, and some just like I self-published some stuff. So I went to like one of my local comic shops and I was like, "Can you take this?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." And there was one shop that I had like maybe 5 or 6 copies of my self-published comics, and after like 3 months they were all sold out. So that gave me such a rush of like happiness. So that was something that I always like look forward to have. And another thing, honestly, it's just being a writer, and like my main dream right now is my main goal is actually to like make enough money off of comics where I can, or just off my writing, where I can just do that full time. I'm not looking for anything like, I'm not looking to be a millionaire off of comics. I don't think anyone is, but just making a decent living off of that, so I can just focus on that, because on that, because like really writing has always given me life. Like I remember when I was 8 years old, 6 years old, actually still writing and being so captivated like by so many stories that my family told me as I was growing up. And I just want to do that for other people. So I think also another idea of my success is people coming up to me and being like, "Listen, I read your comic. I was like in a tough time, and it just gave me some time to escape off my reality, and like maybe even like made me realize some stuff about my life that I needed to change, or just some stuff that I just needed to realize about my life." That if something like that's like really my hope. So if that ever happens, honestly, like I can quit. Like I can really just be happy. I don't know.
Yeah, that one too. That's a good one, AJ.
Yeah, I just did an event where I was vending and selling my books, and it was kind of slow and I wasn't really selling a whole lot. And then this woman this young woman had came up to me and she saw that my posters with my book covers on there, and that I had actually wrote these urban fantasy stories with a main character who's a young Black woman, dark-skinned Black woman. And she was just expressing to me how much I inspired her, even though she hasn't read the book yet, about like maybe continuing on her writing and eventually being published. And I guess the praise, I hate to say praise, I would prefer inspiring people, but then again, the praise isn't too bad to hear that, you know, you've inspired people to at least attempt to try to fulfill their dreams, which is in a way successful. And the same thing going off what you said, AJ, just like reading to escape my people's reality. Like I have a lot of stories, like I read fan fiction, so I have my own like go-to fanfics that kind of like when I'm feeling down, and then I read repeatedly. I think because you kind of already know how it ends and it's not really surprising, and I like discovering new things too when you read things as well. So I think a part of that is a good thing when people read your stories. And like I said, like you said, they use it to escape the reality. Again, they don't have to worry about any surprises or anything like that. And they already know how the story is going to end, and they kind of like rediscover new things. So I think that's a part of the reason why people, I guess, like stories. Pretty much. I'm rambling. This is not my time to ramble. It's your time to ramble, but I'm rambling.
Good. No, I
think
totally,
that was a good point.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. No, you're so right about that too, because I have also kind of table at events, and you're right. That is just, I mean, a great feeling when someone says like, "Hey, I appreciate your work," or "I appreciate what you're doing." You know, I didn't really go to cons growing up, but I mean, I'd be so like. I can only imagine, like, that feeling if you're like some younger kid going and seeing someone that looks like you, or is like putting out stories that kind of resemble like your experience. Like, that's got to be a really empowering feeling. So, like, I hope that, I mean, whatever age you are, I hope that I'm putting out stories that people love and appreciate, and just can find themselves escaping into.
Well, is there anything else that either of you want to touch on about Headcases that I may have missed as a whole? Maybe rewards for potential backers or anything else?
I just wanted to touch on what Leslie just said, and what you also said about like presentation, because I thought that was like I completely relate, and with Headcases, the way I put myself into those characters, especially the two main characters, that Ila, like one of the main characters, the female one, is Jewish, and I'm also Jewish. So that was my way to get it in. And also something that I even like more was I cared about more, that to put that in the story. Ramon, the other kid, like I always, when I was a teenager, I had like a really bad case of the acne. I don't know if anyone can relate, but I just had that.
Yeah, me.
And I remember like always watching movies, TV shows, reading comic books, whatever. And I would always look for people that look like me that have acne, and I never could find anything. Like everyone just looked so beautiful and perfect and whole when it comes to their skin. And it's not how teenagers work. Like that's not how it goes. So I really wanted, with Ramon, like I wanted him to have acne. Like because I wanted other people that had acne or are going through acne right now would be able to pick up this book and be like, oh, someone who actually has the same problem as me. And we, throughout the whole book, never even touch on that problem. Like it's just who he is. It's just a part of what's happening to him while he's on this wild journey. But it still was important to me to show it. And I think I don't know when I'll be able to even do that again, but I'll try as much as I can to represent problems, because I always, because I'm also an educator on my main job, my day job, and whenever I educate, I'm doing my education work, I'm always thinking about, okay, what can I give to these kids? What is that something that I can give to these kids that I wish someone would have told me when I was going through the same thing? You know what I mean? So I'm always looking for ways to do that, either in my educational work or my comics or storytelling work.
Uh-huh. All right. So, will either of you be doing any cons this year, conventions?
Fortunately, none for me this year. I'm really hoping to get back into the swing of things in 2023, but I think I'm done for for this year, or not done, but yeah, just not doing anything this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, me also. I'm not gonna do any cons 2022. I don't know about 2023, honestly, but my first book out of the graphic novel trilogy that's gonna come out in the end of 2024. So hopefully, once that comes out, I'll be able to actually start doing cons. But maybe something in 2023 as well.
Okay. All right. Well, again, I want to thank the co-writers of Headcases, Leslie Julien and AJ O. Mason, for joining us here today to promote the comic that's currently on Crowdfunder. I highly recommend our listeners to consider checking out the Crowdfunder for Headcases, which is now live until July 21st. All of Leslie's and AJ's socials and the Crowdfunder links will be listed in this episode's details for those who are interested. Again, I am K.S. Garner, and you have been listening to the Solo Nerd Podcast. Thank you.